Imagine an empire so powerful that its wealth was measured in gold, and its leader, the Asante, was considered almost a god. An empire that dominated much of West Africa, defied colonizers, and built a culture so rich that it still inspires admiration to this day. This is the Ashanti Empire, a story of glory, resistance, and mystery. Between the 17th and 20th centuries, the Ashanti Empire emerged as one of the greatest powers in West Africa. Founded in 1670, it expanded under the command of visionary monarchs like Osei Tutu and Prempeh I. With an economy based on gold and slave trade, and a society organized around traditional and spiritual values, the Ashanti left a legacy that still echoes in African and world history. The story of the Ashanti begins, like many great empires, with unification. But what makes this tale extraordinary is how deeply intertwined their political power was with spiritual beliefs. The Golden Stool, their most sacred artifact, wasn't just a symbol of authority. It was believed to contain the soul of the entire Ashanti nation. When the Asante sat in council, he wasn't just a king making decisions. He was the living connection between his people and their ancestors, between the physical world and the spiritual realm. This fusion of power created one of Africa's most sophisticated political systems, one that allowed them to resist European colonization longer than many of their neighbors. Did you know that at the height of their power, the Ashanti controlled an area nearly the size of modern-day Ghana? Their military prowess was legendary, with an army that could mobilize tens of thousands of warriors in just days. European observers wrote with awe about their discipline and organization. If you love history and want to unravel the mysteries of the great empires, like this video, subscribe to the Modern Age Chronicles channel and don't miss a single episode. In our journey through time, the Ashanti Empire stands as a testament to African ingenuity, spiritual depth, and remarkable resilience against overwhelming odds. It all began with Osei Tutu, the first Asante, who united the Akan clans under a single banner in the late 17th century. Before Osei Tutu, these lands were divided among dozens of separate communities, often in conflict with one another. But this visionary leader saw the potential for something greater. Imagine the scene. A gathering of rival chiefs, suspicious of one another, brought together by a man with an extraordinary vision. Osei Tutu didn't just want political alliance. He sought to forge a new identity, a new people united by shared purpose and divine blessing. This is where the story takes a mystical turn. With the help of his high priest and advisor, Okomfo Anokye, Osei Tutu created the Golden Stool, a sacred symbol of power and unity for the Ashanti people. According to legend, Okomfo Anokye summoned the stool from the heavens in a spectacular ceremony witnessed by all the clan leaders. As thunder roared and lightning flashed, the golden stool descended from the sky, landing gently on Osei Tutu's knees. From that moment, the golden stool became the spiritual heart of the empire. It wasn't just a throne or royal ornament. The Ashanti believed it contained the soul of their entire nation. Every Asante since Osei Tutu has derived his legitimacy from his connection to this sacred object. Here's something fascinating. The Golden Stool is considered so sacred that it never touches the ground. Even today, it rests on its own special cushion and can only be touched by the Asante during extremely important ritual occasions. When not in use, it's kept in a special shrine, protected by dedicated guardians who have sworn to defend it with their lives. In fact, the importance of the Golden Stool was dramatically demonstrated in 1896 when British Governor Frederick Hodgson demanded to sit on it. His request showed a profound misunderstanding of Ashanti culture. It was equivalent to asking to sit on the soul of their nation. The Ashanti were so outraged that they launched the War of the Golden Stool against the British, showing how this symbol remained the beating heart of their identity, even as their political power waned. With the spiritual authority of the Golden Stool and the political genius of Osei Tutu, the once divided Akan clans transformed into one of Africa's most powerful empires, a transformation that would reshape the history of West Africa for centuries to come. Osei Tutu's genius extended far beyond simply unifying the Ashanti people. He established a political system so effective that European observers would later marvel at its sophistication. This wasn't just another African kingdom. It was a complex confederation with checks and balances that many modern nations would recognize. At the heart of this system was the Asante, the king, but Osei Tutu had no interest in becoming an absolute monarch. Instead, he created a governing council known as the Prempeh, composed of chiefs from the various Ashanti states. These weren't just advisors. They held real power and could even, in extraordinary circumstances, remove an Asante who violated his oath of office. Imagine a royal court where the king must consult with his chiefs before major decisions, where power flows not just from the top down, but also from the bottom up. Village headmen represented their communities to district chiefs, who in turn brought concerns to the Prempeh Council. This created a system where even common people had a voice, albeit indirect, in the empire's governance. What made this system truly remarkable was how it balanced centralized authority with local autonomy. Each chief maintained significant control over his own territory while acknowledging the supreme authority of the Asante. This flexible arrangement allowed the empire to absorb new territories without completely disrupting their existing power structures. Here's a fascinating detail. When the Ashanti conquered a new territory, they often left the local chiefs in place, but required them to send a royal relative to live in Kumasi, the capital city. These royal hostages served as both insurance against rebellion and as cultural ambassadors who became immersed in Ashanti ways. This political system proved incredibly effective. Under Osei Tutu and his successors, the Ashanti Empire expanded rapidly along crucial trade routes. By the mid-18th century, they controlled territories, giving them access to both the gold-rich interior and coastal trading posts. They became the dominant force in what is now Ghana and parts of Togo and Ivory Coast. The genius of Osei Tutu's system was that it created unity without uniformity. Each region maintained its cultural identity while becoming part of something greater. The empire collected taxes and tribute, but also provided protection and access to wider trading networks. This balance between central authority and local autonomy became the foundation upon which the Ashanti Empire would thrive for over 2 centuries. Even today, elements of this political structure survive in modern Ghana, where traditional chiefs continue to play important roles alongside the democratic government, a living testament to the enduring legacy of Osei Tutu's political vision. By the late 19th century, the Ashanti Empire faced its greatest challenge yet, the British Empire, at the height of its colonial ambition. For over 200 years, the Ashanti had fought to maintain their independence, successfully repelling earlier European incursions. But now they faced a British force determined to bring all of West Africa under their control. Enter Prempeh I, who ascended to the Golden Stool in 1888 at just 16 years old. Despite his youth, he quickly proved himself a shrewd leader and fierce defender of Ashanti sovereignty. Imagine this young ruler, barely out of childhood, suddenly responsible for protecting centuries of tradition against the world's most powerful empire. The tension between the Ashanti and British had been building for decades. 4 previous Anglo-Ashanti wars had been fought with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. But the British, driven by both commercial interests and the scramble for African territories, were determined to finally subjugate this proud African kingdom. In 1894, Prempeh made a bold diplomatic move. He sent emissaries to Queen Victoria herself, seeking direct negotiations to resolve disputes peacefully. His message was clear: The Ashanti wished for peaceful relations but would not surrender their sovereignty. The British colonial officials in the Gold Coast intercepted these emissaries, preventing the message from ever reaching London. They had no intention of allowing African rulers to negotiate as equals. When diplomatic efforts failed, Prempeh prepared for war while still hoping to avoid bloodshed. He reorganized the Ashanti military and strengthened defensive positions around Kumasi. But he also understood the devastating power of British weaponry and sought to protect his people from unnecessary suffering. In January 1896, British forces entered Kumasi with minimal resistance. Prempeh had made the difficult decision to avoid a direct military confrontation, believing it would only lead to needless deaths. In a dramatic scene in front of his palace, Prempeh was forced to perform an act of submission. The British demanded he prostrate himself before their commander. With dignity intact, he famously declared, "The Ashanti king does not yield to threats, but for the safety of my people, I submit without a fight." Prempeh was captured, along with his mother and other royal family members, and exiled first to Sierra Leone and later to the Seychelles Islands, thousands of miles from his homeland. The British believed they had broken the Ashanti spirit, but they were mistaken. Just 4 years later, in 1900, the War of the Golden Stool erupted when the British governor demanded to sit on the sacred symbol of Ashanti identity. Even in exile, Prempeh continued to advocate for his people. He learned English, studied British law, and petitioned tirelessly for his return. After 28 years in exile, he was finally allowed to return to Ghana in 1924, though only as a private citizen. 2 years later, the British partially restored his position as a regional chief, acknowledging his continued influence. Though the Ashanti Empire as an independent power had ended, Prempeh's resistance became a powerful symbol of African dignity in the face of colonial aggression. His story inspired future generations of Ghanaians who would eventually win independence in 1957, fulfilling the dream that Prempeh had fought to preserve. Hey, did you know that the Golden Stool is so sacred that it never touches the ground? If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button, share it with friends who love history, and subscribe to Modern Age Chronicles for more incredible stories. And tell us in the comments, which historical empire would you like us to explore in our next video? Perhaps the Mali Empire with its legendary king Mansa Musa, or maybe the powerful Zulu kingdom? Let us know below. The Ashanti Empire wasn't merely a realm of military might and economic power. At its heart pulsed a vibrant culture, rich in artistic expression, musical tradition, and spiritual ceremony that continues to captivate the world today. Imagine walking through an Ashanti village in the 18th century. The air would be filled with the rhythmic beats of talking drums, conveying messages between communities faster than any European communication system of the time. These weren't just musical instruments. They were sophisticated communication tools that could mimic the tonal qualities of spoken language, allowing drummers to send complex messages across vast distances. The Ashanti people expressed their spirituality and aesthetic sensibilities through remarkable craftsmanship. Their weavers created the famous kente cloth, intricate textiles with geometric patterns where each design carried specific meanings. Originally reserved exclusively for royalty, these vibrant fabrics told stories of status, historical events, and philosophical beliefs through their colors and patterns. A particularly fascinating detail: it could take a master weaver up to 6 months to create a single ceremonial kente cloth for the Asante. Gold wasn't just a trade commodity for the Ashanti, it was the medium for their most exquisite artistic expressions. Their goldsmiths created weights for measuring gold dust that were miniature sculptures depicting proverbs, animals, and scenes from daily life. These tiny masterpieces, some no larger than your thumbnail, reveal an artistic sophistication that amazed European observers. At the center of Ashanti cultural life stood their spiritual practices, which bound together the living community with their ancestors. The Ashanti believed in Nyame, the supreme creator, but also honored the ancestors who formed a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. This connection was celebrated and renewed during the Adai festival, held every 6 weeks throughout the year. During Adai, the community would gather as the Asante performed rituals to commune with ancestral spirits. These weren't simply religious ceremonies, they were powerful expressions of Ashanti identity and unity. Through shared feasting, dancing, drumming, and storytelling, the bonds of community were strengthened, and young people absorbed the values and history of their culture. One of the most spectacular Ashanti cultural events was the Odwira Festival, a massive annual celebration lasting several days that served multiple purposes. It was a harvest thanksgiving, a memorial for the dead, a time of political renewal, and a reaffirmation of loyalty to the Asante. Imagine thousands of people gathered in Kumasi, dressed in their finest clothes, as elaborate processions wound through the streets with chiefs displaying their regalia and warriors performing military drills. What made Ashanti culture particularly remarkable was how thoroughly it infused everyday life. Their deep appreciation for eloquent speech gave rise to thousands of proverbs that conveyed cultural wisdom. The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people, and it is the calm and silent water that drowns a man are just 2 examples of Ashanti proverbs that remain relevant today. Even Ashanti architecture reflected their values and beliefs. The royal palace in Kumasi was built without using a single nail. Instead, it used an ingenious system of wooden joints and precise engineering that astonished European visitors. Each architectural element had symbolic meaning, from the placement of doors to the number of supporting posts. This rich cultural heritage didn't disappear with the fall of the empire. Today, modern Ghana draws deeply from Ashanti traditions. The current Asante still holds court in Kumasi, Adai festivals continue to be celebrated, and kente cloth has become recognized worldwide as a symbol of African cultural pride. The vibrant spirit of the Ashanti, expressed through their art, music, wisdom, and ceremonies, continues to inspire and captivate people around the world. The Ashanti Empire stands as far more than just a military or economic power in the pages of history. It represents the extraordinary resilience and cultural wealth of the Akan people, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Even as European powers carved up the African continent in the late 19th century, the Ashanti spirit could not be colonized. Though the empire officially fell to British colonial rule in 1902, after more than 2 centuries of independence, its legacy courses through history like gold dust in a river, impossible to contain, eternally valuable. Today, the influence of the Ashanti can be seen everywhere, from the vibrant ceremonies still held in Kumasi to the global appreciation for kente cloth patterns. Perhaps the most powerful legacy of the Ashanti is what they teach us about cultural resilience. When the Asante Prempeh II returned from exile in 1924, he found a people who had kept their traditions alive despite decades of colonial suppression. The Golden Stool, that sacred symbol of Ashanti identity, had been hidden and protected by ordinary people willing to risk everything to preserve their heritage. This speaks to something profound about human nature. Political systems may fall, borders may change, but cultural identity runs deeper than any external power can reach. The Ashanti knew this. It's why they invested so heavily in their festivals, their craftsmanship, their oral traditions. These were not merely entertainments, but vessels carrying their essence through time. In modern Ghana, the current Asante Osei Tutu II, named after the empire's founder, continues to hold significant cultural influence. Though his role is no longer that of an absolute monarch, his position represents an unbroken line stretching back to the 17th century. The palace at Kumasi remains a center of cultural life, and the Adai festivals continue to bind communities together. When Ghana gained its independence in 1957, its leaders drew inspiration from Ashanti resistance to colonialism. The country's first president, Kwame Nkrumah, specifically invoked the spirit of Ashanti warriors in calling for unity and pride among all Ghanaians. The Ashanti legacy thus became woven into the very foundation of modern African independence movements. As we reflect on the rise and fall of this remarkable empire, we're reminded that true power lies not just in armies or wealth, but in the stories, values, and traditions that give meaning to a people's existence. The Ashanti Empire may no longer dominate West African trade routes, but its cultural influence continues to shape our world in ways both seen and unseen. In a time when many societies worry about losing their identities to globalization, the Ashanti story offers a powerful reminder. Even in the face of overwhelming challenges, a culture rooted in strong values and shared traditions can transcend time itself. If you enjoyed this journey through the Golden Empire of West Africa, please hit that like button. Share this video with friends who appreciate rich historical tales, and subscribe to Modern Age Chronicles for more content exploring ancient civilizations and forgotten empires. What other African kingdoms would you like us to explore next? Let us know in the comments below. Until our next historical adventure.